Yeah, I was told that Abdullah Ide
Yes.
Was said to be the first parliamentarian in the northern region.
Yes.
How true is it? And how did it happen? The first parliamentarian in the entire northern region.
Eggon parliamentarian.
Okay, the first Eggon parliamentarian
Yes,
in the entire northern region.
Yes, that is true. Because Abdullah Ide became chief in 1953.
Okay.
He became chief. There were other people who contested with him. You know, the British now found out that decentralization was not what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these three Eggon clans that were ruling themselves, groups that were ruling themselves, it was not okay. It was a hindrance to their own effective administration of the
British.
Of the British.
Okay.
You know, so they now decided that look, then they should appoint an Eggon again, a central chief. After the experiment with Alumko, you know, they should now appoint a substantive chief again. They should forget about this head of groups or clans because they felt that maybe it was polarizing.
Yeah.
So they now opened the contest for the Eggon, and he won in 1953. And don't forget that in 1953 we were still under the British.
Yes.
We were still under British rule. And the chiefs all over the north and all over Nigeria had a House of Chiefs. So the Northern House of Chiefs, you know, he was important, you know, he was a third class. He was included in the Northern House of Chiefs.
Oh, okay.
You know,
okay.
So then too, there was the federal parliament in Abuja as we are trying to do reforms to give independence. You know, the chiefs were also members of parliament. A lot of the chiefs were also parliamentarians, you know, in Lagos.
So he became the representative of the northern region.
No, representative of the Eggon people
yes,
in parliament.
Yes.
As one of the chiefs.
Okay.
Yes, because there were many other people.
Okay.
There were chiefs in parliament. There were people who were appointed by their own people to be in parliament and so on. But don't forget, even at that time, Abdullah Ide was educated. He was one of the most enlightened.
Because he worked with
not only because of that, he went to primary school.
Oh, okay.
He went to Laminga.
Okay.
He went to Laminga Primary School. He finished, and he started working with the native authority. Yes, and then went on courses to Ibadan, to many other courses in Ebi. So he was quite well educated by the standard of that time. So he became the magistrate. He became the chairman of the Akwanga Traditional Council. Or Federation Council.
Of Akwanga?
Yes.
And that's why people call it Akwanga or something.
You know, then he was in the Northern House of Chiefs, as all other chiefs, and then he was a member of parliament. But by 1957, you know, when they were doing more reforms, there was now general election. Who will go to parliament by 1959?
Yes.
You know, that was when Marafa now became a member of parliament. But it was after Abdullah Ide had been a member of parliament. Then Marafa, who is also his cousin, became a member of parliament. Okay. But Marafa was highly educated. He was a teacher. He went to the Catholic primary school in Alogani. He went to Shendam, where he was trained. He was a highly educated and polished person.
Interesting.
You know, so that is how the evolution came. Yes.
We will look at how was the efficacy of the Eggon traditional stool and the Moarne Eggon over the years in connection with the Orne Eggon.
Well, if you are talking of the strength of the Eggon society and its chieftaincy,
yes,
you know, you
over
time, you will see that the chieftaincy was part and parcel of the society. It was not a royal class above society.
Exactly.
It came as a spiritual evolution of the Eggon society, because everybody in the clan was regarded as equal, and you could be chief because you are sons of the same father. You know, you are blood relatives.
Yes.
So nobody is seen to be above the other. But in practice, if you were a brave hunter, if you were maybe polygamous with many children and many wives, many children, if you had large farmlands, it created a distinction between you and those who didn't have all those things. That is number one. Number two, if you were morally upright, you were spiritually upright, you understood the customs and traditions of the ashram. Yes. You were initiated into the ashram, you took the ashram, which we say ashram, yes. Which means you obeyed all the commandments, you did everything. Now, the choice of the chiefs in those days, Adangashim, yes. That is the spiritual leader, the chief, you know, with all the respect that that title commands.
Yes.
If you were, you know, you were obeyed, whatever you said, in interpretation of the law, in adjudication, you were obeyed.
Yes.
You know, you were advised, of course, by the mandat question, by the advisors. And then, you know, when you took decisions, they were very strong because there was discipline, and those discipline came from the micro level, you know, starting from the small family group to the larger family groups to the clan. So it was very strict. So Eggon society was very well organized. And you know the role of the first son in the micro level of the father, the mother, and so on. You know, the girls were trained by their mother. The boys went to hunting, they went to farming,
fishing,
they went to fishing, they made mats, you know, and
Eggon crafts,
yes. Handicrafts, and so on. So it was a very well organized society. So it was later with the introduction of the cash economy, the money economy, that Eggon society, and then of course education, you know, with urbanization, yes. And so on, you know, there was a breakup of Eggon society. And then the movement of the Eggon from the hills also meant there was a breakup. But it was the British resettlement policy that they didn't want the Eggons to be in the hills, because in the hills they were very difficult to administer.
Can't find their way there.
Yes, they were difficult to administer. To climb those hills, to go to various places, etc. was extremely difficult, and they can become quite inaccessible and so on. So you wanted a central place where they could be governed, and that is the history of Nassarawa Eggon, to bring the Eggon people to a central place in the lowland where they can be governed. It was a British idea.
I gave birth to Nassarawa Eggon.
Yes, it was a British idea. It was not, as some people attribute to Abdullahi, they know. That he now say he had Nasarawa over. No, that is not true.
So it was British idea that to pull the Eggon people from the central place.
Yes, to have a capital
where they can actually have them governed.
Yes, that was a British idea. That's why you have Nassarawa Eggon. And then because it was in the northern region at that time, it was part of the northern region, and Kaduna was the headquarters of the northern region. Of course, when you come, you now have, they will say Nasarawa,
yes.
You know, which is like a new town. Nasarawa in Kefi, Nasarawa in Kano, Nassarawa Eggon, and so on. So that was where the influence of the name came in. If not, people were living on one side before and referring to it as Angibi, you know, because Angibi Kwabla was one of those who formed it to the west. Okay. And then there was Alizaga, you know, that area where they now occupy from this Eggon community to this thing. And then, of course, from the hills adjoining here, you have Gale and so on. And the Eggon movement from the hills, starting from about 1940, you know, that was when the British resettlement policy became very effective, you know, up to 1950s, you know. But one point to be made is that, look, the Eggon were divided into two halves. There were those who were in Lafia division already, starting from Akika, you know, and even coming to BAD and all the rest of the places, you know. So those ones, they had always been part of Lafia division.
Okay.
Yes, Arubadu, Angom, there are a lot of them that were already part of Lafia division. In fact, there were those who were even around Wamba, you know, at that time. And when the boundary was formed, you know, the Eggon boundary at that time was around the Mada Hills, you know, at the beginning.
Okay. So, sorry, you know, recently I realized that I saw your poster somewhere. So you're also a politician. After being involved in book writing, being a barrister, and now you are into politics. What inspired you into politics?
Well, you know, first of all, as a student, I had always been involved in the students' union right from the university, so I was part of politics. If you say in secondary school, I was a prefect, I was president of the debating society, French club, drama, etc. So we are all part of a political process. After that, I was part of civil society in Lagos for about 15 years. I was in Lagos for about 17 years, but clearly for 15 years, we were part of those who formed the Campaign for Democracy, National Association of Democratic Lawyers, Civil Liberties Organization, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, etc. And even were involved with NADECO, etc., nominated people to do NADECO. So there were a lot of things that we were involved in because of military rule. And lawyers at that time were opposed to military rule in the Barr Association. And
journalists as well.
And journalists and other civil society groups. So we were all part of those things that evolved. And after that, you know, I was Solicitor General and Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Justice.
In Nasarawa State?
In Nasarawa State, from 1999, during the first post-military civil administration.
Okay.
And within that time as well, I was acting secretary to state government. And then I became director of campaign for the governor, for the re-election of the governor in 2002.
Which of the governor?
Abdullahi Adam.
Okay. In his second term?
Yes, in his second, for his second term.
2003 or something?
Yeah, 2003 to 2007. When he wanted to go for re-election, he appointed me as the Director General of the campaign.
The campaign?
Yes. So, after which I was appointed as the Managing Director of the Greater Karu Area Planning and Authority.
Okay.
So, and that's called CAPTA for short.
Oh, you were?
Yes.
Today's CAPTA.
Yes. Well, at that time we started it, called the Greater Karu Area Planning and Development Authority, to look over about 800 square kilometers of land from the Mararaba, Masaka, Nyanya axis up to Gora, you know, which is in Kefi, local government. So part of Kefi now we go to the boundary with Kaduna, and then we go to the boundary with Kogi and our boundary with FCT. It's what is called the Greater Karu, you know, and a beautiful master plan. I was there for a while. So you can see that I have been involved in politics and I understood it, and I had this passion that maybe you could make a contribution, as a lawyer I can make a contribution to the development of our area, because I was looking at Lafia and Obi. You know, I was looking at it and saying that, look, we were underrepresented. I think that the whole people of that area have been underrepresented.
Okay.
You know, they have not been well represented
In the federal?
in the House of Representatives.
No, we had Kigu at one time. Dr. Haruna Kigu represented, and before then we had some other persons, don't we?
Now, I said underrepresented.
Okay.
I didn't say we had an absence of representation.
Okay.
I said underrepresented.
Okay.
You know, there is a difference between having a lot of experience in civil society, in political parties, and in government with people who have not had any prior experience, the kind of experience that we have had, the kind of background as lawyers that we have had. You know, not only did I study and get a bachelor's degree and went to law school, I also went for further education in Switzerland to the Institute of Federalism. And we know we run a federal country, so there are a lot of issues in the Constitution that you would like to contribute to. I was a member of the National Conference in 2014. So, of course, you know, knowledge is a very important thing. You know, and then you can say that I have written a number of books, 6 books, a book of poetry, short stories, 2 books of short stories. Yeah,
these books are here. This the Eggon People. This is the second edition. By Tony Akika. We have the Eggon People. This is the first edition. This is the first edition. This one is blue in color. This is green. We also have the modern history of the Eggon People by the same barrister Tony Akika. This is quite good, and we also have the old Krona and the Madame. Those are short stories. These are short stories. Yes, and we have the excursion, a selection of poems. All these books were written by you. So do we have copies of these books? Okay, we have the family story, an African trilogy. All these books written by our guest for today. Do we have these books out there for?
In fact, the books, immediately they are printed, people just get them. I give them out a lot. Okay. I have sold a few copies, but a lot of the copies have gone to friends, they have gone to complimentary copies and so on. But we are going to do a formal launching where the books will be available, you know, to everybody. You know, we print more copies and so on. And in this selection of poems, excursions, a selection of poems, you know, we also have Song of the Eggon Hills, which is the most this thing here.
So, sir, I think we have you have some points that has to do with the Eggon People. Would you like to read it for us?
Yes, please.
Okay, please.
This is from the volume called Excursions. A selection of poems. And I have written a poem about the Eggon people. In this collection. Now, we all know that the Eggon people have lived in the hills before they came to the lowlands. And some still live there. And when we lived in the hills, it was a fantastic place.
Much more than what
we have experienced now. So it is some sort of nostalgia when you study the history. You wish that you go back to the hills where we used to have our culture, our traditions, and everything that defined the personality of the Eggon man and woman. So I now wrote this poem in happy memory of those times.
Read it.
So it is titled Song of the Eggon Hills. The highlands of my birth, where my forefathers once lived. How I wish I lived in you, to commune with my ancestors, to savour the colors of the plants, and to live with the animals and the birds. The stars that I could count, in the sky so bright and so clear, and now Eggon, the 3 witness stars, and all the stars of the sky, that guide my life and season, all from the heights of the hills. The tales of the land, of animals who were men and taught men how to live, the intrepid hare and the wise tortoise and the lion king. Of men who were gods, brave hunters and unconquerable warriors, who commanded lions and conquered men. The highlands of my birth, of the dance and song, of heroes past and valiant men, how I miss those halcyon days when men were men. Of rivers that rise in white splendor and gentle force, where women fetched and men drank, and in wild pools children played. Those hills, those highlands, our ancestral hills. Where men plowed with calloused palms, under the shimmering sun and splattering rain, for a harvest rich, those hills, those highlands. From the heights you could see the adversary come, an arrow of marksmanship, and a trophy from the bow of the warrior prince. The shield, those hills. In the heights the maiden dance, and the young men the maiden search, to rhythms of love and tropical dance, under the moon so bright and near. Where plums bloom and cherries grow, where trees rise like cedar trees, where brooks dot the valleys lush, the grass green, all in pomp and panoply, our ancestral land. In the hills we bow to the Supreme One, who lives far over the clouds, and to our ancestors in the earth, we in remembrance live, in those hills, our ancestral hills. From the highlands, from the heights, in my spirit and in my being, in my heart and in my soul, I feel my ancestral land, all the mystery, all the glory of my ancestral land.
Wow, this is a very powerful point.
Yes.
When you said in the pool where the children goes to play,
yes.
It's a reminiscence of my experience too. I know.
Exactly.
Some little waters around.
Yes.
You would jump, you climb the tree,
yes,
and you headlong straight into the pool,
yes.
and you just play.
Yes.
You know.
Sometimes you are on the hill, a little bit of hill, and then you jump.
Yeah, you dive.
You dive into it.
You can't find distance.
And when people are coming from the farm, they stop there.
Exactly.
And there is the bath. But when they go a little bit up, they can fetch the one for drinking. Yes, exactly. The one for drinking comes. You go a little bit far. You will find the pools where it's original. The spring is coming.
And then you still pick some fishes from
yes,
there.
And then
fresh
of course,
fishes.
yes, and of course there is fish. And all over the hills, and there were 400 and over 20 square miles of Eggon land.
420 square miles.
Yes, of Eggon land. It's about 432 or so, 1,000 square miles. Surrounded by the hills. Bounded by the river Akika.
Yes.
The river Akika runs through. And then the river, the east. Then you now have the river Mada in the west. So there were all these big rivers and then streams in between. Yes. And then when you were in the hills, there were springs that
some are even in the caves.
Yes.
Springs are in the cave that over 3,000 people can live in and fetch cold water. You wonder where the water comes from.
Exactly. And you know that in the caves, we had caves large enough during wars if the people stayed, and then you had caves where you have water and so on. So it's a lot of history.
And those hills are still there.
Yeah, they're still there.
We have bandits now taking over some of those hills.
Yes, of course.
And government is doing nothing about it.
No, it's not a question of government. It is a question of the people themselves. Over time, we have lost our traditional authority.
Okay.
There has been a weakness in the traditional authority. One, because people traveled out to
okay.
stay in the lowlands. That is one. Two, because people abandoned the hills themselves. They were no longer living within the hills, within the clan lands in the hills. So, and then three, large urbanization means you could bring up your kids without knowing the traditions and culture of the people.
Right.
So, but one of the areas is to see how things can grow back in the hills.
Exactly like what we're doing now. Yes. We're trying to take people back to their history.
Yes.
Let them understand.
Exactly. Because every clan in Eggon land had their own place in the hill.
That's true.
Every clan. All the clans have their own place in the hills. So if they were to develop their clan lands within the hills.
Tourist region.
Yeah, it will be tourism. And people will even like to live there. Like I, for instance, I would prefer to live in the hills.
Yes,
as you grow older,
you want to go back home.
Want to go back home.
A peaceful place.
Yes, you have a sense of nostalgia. You have a sense of history, a sense of culture, and you want to link back spiritually with your own people.
That's right.
So that happens to all individuals, all people. So the most important thing is to know your history, to know your identity, to know where you come from and where you're going. And that is the conclusion to which we are alluding to.
Yeah.
That what is the advice? The advice is to go back to history. You have always raised this issue. And I think the advice is for us to know our own history, to know our own culture, to know where we come from, to know the traditions and customs that we should uphold, and to know the traditions and culture that because of maybe Christianity or Islam, we may not be able to continue with them. We have to have a healthy relationship. I think that the Yorubas, for instance, have been able to do it very well. That they know their traditions and their culture very, very well.
And they respect it.
They respect it, and they know their history very well, and they know their language and everything well. But at the same time, they are highly westernized, highly sophisticated people. But it hasn't made them to lose their own sense of identity.
No.
So identity is very important. Now, it is also important to state that when you now want to know your history and your identity, it doesn't mean that you should be an enemy to any other ethnic group.
No, certainly not.
Yes. It is not in relation to being an enemy of anybody, but of knowing who you are, what those values are. And if you do live together, you can contribute your own part, of who you are to the general good. If they don't have certain aspects of their own culture, of their own history, of their own governance mechanisms, like the order. Yes. So everywhere you have order. The order are the regulations. They are the laws of the land. The orders of the land. And everybody obeys them. And because you obey them, there is peace.
That's true.
So Eggon society was a law-governed society with punishment.
Yes.
You could be executed. They can tell you to take poison, or they can expel you from the clan if you go against the regulations, against the laws.
Yeah.
And what are the laws?
I remember one of my uncle was asked to pay a fine of goats or something he did. He objected that he wouldn't do it.
Yes. And then he will be excommunicated.
Somehow he was excommunicated. You can't fetch water from
the
stream where even if your wife goes to fetch water, nobody helped her to take the water up.
Yes.
This communal farming.
Yes.
Nobody goes to your farm.
Yes.
And anybody found visiting your house will also be fined. And these are orders.
Yes.
And people obey it. And it helps.
Those are the punishments for disobedience.
Okay.
Those disobedience, include you must respect your father and your mother.
That's true.
You must not commit adultery. You must not steal. You must not steal. You must not gossip or bring down anybody. There are so many of these regulations which are similar to the 10 Commandments. Sometimes there are 7, you find them in the clan, or sometimes there are 10. Now, if you were to commit adultery, for instance, you must undergo a process of cleansing, which is adgaha. Everybody will know that you committed adultery. You will sit before the community, you know, and then you must
go through
the process of cleansing, and then you must pay a fine of a goat or 2 goats or even 7 goats, you know. And so these are things that, and then once every year, the whole community will undergo a process of cleansing. Every year in Eggon land, you know, if you you must confess to whatever you have done.
You know the unknown.
Yeah. No, since you have committed.
Okay.
That you have committed. Okay. You know, it is the sins that you have committed. If you have killed a person, if you have stolen somebody's goods, if you have slept with anybody's wife, etc. And all those things have punishment. Now, and then apart from the punishment, there is also redemption. There is forgiveness, you know.
Great.
Yes, you will be forgiven, and then it's a process of cleansing, and then you now will pay a fine, you know. So those are some of the things. And then when it comes to punishment, it can be a goat, or 2 goats, or a he-goat as defined, and some other things that you will do. If it is very serious, you can be excommunicated, you know, from the clan, especially if you refuse to pay a fine, or if you are a habitual criminal or something.
Yes.
And then the harshest punishment will be for you to take poison. So there is even death sentence. You can be sentenced to death, you know, for transgression against it, and that is administered by poison. So you will take poison, and you know. So Eggon society was very, very well law governed, and it was a spiritual society.
And the person who is taking this poison knows that this is poison given to him.
Of course,
he has no option than to take it.
That is the punishment. It is an execution. You understand? It is an execution. So you have been sentenced to death by poison. So this is the poison. You must take it. If not, they will kill you anyway. So, you know.
Wow.
So it was a law-governed society. It was a well-ordered society. It had hierarchies. It had laws, you know, and it was going very well.
So what would you tell our youths of this generation that tend to be lawless in today's lifestyle and the kind of living they have now, especially the Eggon youths, because some of them are out of the communities and they assumed both the law of the land and that of the community will have no effect in them, so they live anyhow. Do you have any advice for them as we conclude?
You know, it is a matter of great sadness, you know, sometimes when we observe this, you know, and you feel a lot of pain, because the youth are the future of any society. They are the ones who are going to take over. And if they are not good now, in future, just another 10 years, 20 years, that society is finished. By the time they take over, they cannot govern well. It is the typical Nigerian story, you know, because we have bad leadership. The stage we have reached now, you can see a lot of things, you know. So if our youth are not well trained, they don't have education, and they have not gone back to know their history and their culture, and so on, they will have problems. So my first advice is that they should read. They should read about their own history. They should read about their own literature. They should read about everything, you know. And then 2, they must work together with their elders.
That's right.
There are things that the elders know that they can never know. There are things that the elders have experienced that they could never experience. And when I'm talking of elders, it doesn't mean that if an elder is bad, you should follow him. But ordinarily, an elder who gives you advice, who can carry you along, who can teach you, you know, you are supposed to go by that example. You should know your own precepts, the precepts of your society, the regulations of your society, the history of your own people, the literature. When you know all this, it will help you to be able to appreciate where you come from, you know.
Barrister Akika, we are happy to have you in today's interview. We are glad for the exposition you've given to us so much. We're very much grateful. We believe that in the nearest future you will avail yourself again and to help us more in exposing more about the Eggon society. Some of these your books, we believe that in no distant time it will be found on the website of GSPForum as time progresses. Thank you and God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the great work that you are doing. This is the foundation of what the Eggon people and nation will be. It is only education that can lead us forward. And the great work you are doing now, you may not know the full ramifications, but in future this thing will spread all out, and you will have a very great people who can live in peace within themselves and live with other ethnic groups in the community. And if we obey Eggon rules and regulations and laws very well, we will be a leader. You know, automatically you will be a leader when you are well versed in Eggon culture, traditions, laws, and because you will be fair to everybody.
That's right.
The cardinal point of Eggon regulations, laws, society is fairness to your neighbor.
That's true.
Love of your neighbor. Thank you very much.
Thank you and God bless you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Yes.